Noah and Kate, Chapter 23. Various replies flashed into Noah's head. This isn't what it looks like. Well, except it absolutely was. I can explain. Except he couldn't even explain this situation to himself, let alone Paige. Don't you ever knock? Not the time, Kincaid. Not the time. Noah's eyes flew over to Kate, hoping maybe she'd take the lead and say something disarmingly charming, but she was just as frozen as the three intruders were. Oh, what the hell. Hi, guys, he said brightly, tossing up a little wave. Maybe if he acted like this was no big deal, Paige would somehow, magically, wipe that shocked look off her face and say hi back. What the hell is going on? Is what she said instead, her brows angled down and her eyes like little shards of flint. Okay, so that approach hadn't worked. Her steely gaze slowly slid from Noah to Kate and back again, corralling them both inside her blast radius. Noah tried to disentangle himself from between Kate's thighs, but since she was trying to free herself from his, they ended up getting even more tangled up, until finally, out of pure frustration, he slid to the floor, lifted Kate's ankle over his head, and dropped it back down on the couch. He stood up awkwardly and crossed his arms over his bare chest, pasting on a casual smile. Nothing much, he said, a little breathless. What's going on with you guys? Ladies, maybe we should leave, Callum put in. No, said Paige and Lily in unison, a little too loudly. Lily was skewering Noah with a look of disbelief, mouth open, eyes fluttering, hands on hips. Paige crossed her arms and stepped closer, her hot blue gaze burning right through him. Noah, can I have a word with you, please? She said. And she really did say it. There was no question anywhere in her clipped tone. In private? Paige, come on, he said, although the words seemed to have trouble getting past some obstruction in his throat. Don't you think we're being a bit dramatic? Now, she snapped, her eyes flashing a warning. Okay, time for us to get going, Callum said cheerfully, gently tugging on Lily's elbow. We'll catch up with you later, Paige. No way! Lily shrugged off his hand and stepped forward. Noah, are you seriously hooking up with Kate? I mean, God. Her eyes flicked over to Kate, a mixture of emotions piling up in her gaze. Jealousy, certainly. A fair bit of disdain. Hurt, most surprising of all. I never figured she was your type. Lily didn't need to say the rest out loud. The unspoken words, I thought I was, hung in the air, painfully loud in the silence. It's really not your business, Lily, Noah said evenly. Or anyone's, for that matter. This last was aimed, sharpened end and everything, at Paige. Oh, yeah? Paige shot back, her cheeks now flushed pink. You start fucking around with my friends, you bet your ass it's my business. And now we're definitely going, Callum announced, taking Lily by the arm like she was a suspect and leading her, protesting, out the kitchen door. Kate rose and straightened her dress, her own cheeks dusted pink. Noah tried to catch her eye to smile at her, or roll his eyes, or maybe even wink at her, but she was too busy studying the floor. We can talk out here, Noah said, all three of us. Why don't you come sit down and bedroom, now? He hated it when Paige got angry at him, which seemed to be a semi-regular occurrence these days. She made him feel 10 years old again, narrowing her eyes at him that way and looking very much like their mother. This is something he knew better than to say out loud, of course. He had learned almost nothing about women in his short time on Earth, but he knew enough to never say anything as stupid as that. He looked over at Kate one last time and was rewarded with her beautiful eyes on his. He smiled, a quirk of his lips that he hoped conveyed everything he wanted to say. It's okay. I'll handle her. She's just being all bossy and interfering and Paige-like, but she means well, and it'll blow over in a minute, and wow, have I told you how gorgeous you are. Then he caught Paige's glare and followed her down the hall to their disputed former room. Paige closed the door firmly behind them and rounded on him. What the fuck, Noah? She whispered harshly, arms crossed. Are you sleeping with my best friend? Tell me you're not. Please, tell me you're not. Noah swallowed, trying to figure out how to handle the firecracker in front of him. Well, so far, it's just been the once. Paige's hands flew up to her hair, and she gaped at him. I can't believe I'm hearing this. After everything I said to you at the party, after specifically telling you to stay away from her. Paige, come on, he said, torn between guilt and indignation. Yeah, she told him not to date her friend, but was it really so bad if he did? Was it really worth all the drama? Did you take it as some sort of challenge? She pressed. Is it a male ego thing? She's the only woman you can't have, so you go full caveman on her? A laugh escaped his lips, and he bowed his head away, recalling a conversation with Kate about his caveman side. He considered mentioning that Kate seemed quite eager to meet Mr. Neanderthal, thank you very much, but wisely decided against it. When he looked back, he was relieved to see the tiniest little quirk tugging at the corner of his sister's mouth. She was trying to stay imperious and pissy, but she'd managed to amuse herself, and that was always a good sign. She let out a heavy breath and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, some of the blazing heat was gone. Come here, sit down, she said, pulling him by the hand over towards the bottom bunk. The bottom bunk. He struggled not to laugh again, imagining what she'd do if she knew this whole thing had started right here in this very bed. They sat together, knees touching, and Paige took his hand in hers. Look, I love you, you know I do, but I love Kate too, and I can't believe you would do this to her. Do what? He asked, really hoping she didn't want details. You! I can't believe you're subjecting her to you. There it was again, that old refrain. He wasn't living up to some standard Paige had set, and she felt more than comfortable telling him to his face how much he sucked. Any joviality he'd felt began to solidify in the center of his chest, like it always did, into a sour lump that lodged in his gut. He didn't know which was worse, what he was hearing or who was saying it. What exactly am I subjecting her to? He asked, removing his hand from hers. You, she said again, emphatically. She gestured vaguely to his whole body. Your charm and your looks and your fake interest in her. Fake interest? What the... You know what I mean. No, I actually don't, he said, hearing the tightness in his own voice. What makes you think I'm faking interest in Kate? Because I've seen it before. I have to pick up the pieces when my friends fall for you, she said matter-of-factly, when you turn on the charm and act all devoted and lovey-dovey, and then just drop them when you're done, like they meant nothing to you. Hold on, he reared back, putting his hands up. What the hell are you talking about? I have never done that to a woman, ever. I'm not like that. You should know I'm not like that. What about my friend Carolyn? She challenged. She said you were all emotionally invested and romantic and all that, and then, bam, one day it was all over. You were just done. Noah didn't often get angry. In a job like his, dealing with people on the worst day of their lives, he couldn't afford to have a short fuse. But he felt the first stirrings of it now, roiling in his stomach as he took in the look of smug superiority on his sister's face. Paige, he said, closing his eyes to try to tamp down his rising irritation. Not that it's any of your business, but you know nothing about what happened with me and Carolyn. I can promise you I did not just dump her out of the blue because I was done with her, whatever she may have told you. It wasn't just her, Paige said. You broke Jenna's heart, too. Jenna? Who the hell was Jenna? His frown seemed to be all the confirmation Paige needed. She threw her hands up in the air and let them fall dramatically to her thighs. See what I mean? You don't even remember her, do you? I've never had a girlfriend named Jenna, I swear to God. Not a girlfriend, Paige said, rolling her eyes. You went on a couple of dates with her in 2008. Don't you remember? What? The word flew out of him with considerable bafflement. You've got to be kidding me. How could I break someone's heart after a few dates? That's just ridiculous. She said you were very charming and paid a lot of attention to her, made her feel special. Yeah, and? He said, encouraging her to get to why this was a problem. Isn't that what I'm supposed to do on a date? And then you stopped calling her. It didn't work out, he protested, raising his voice in exasperation. It happens. It's no one's fault. We just didn't click. He remembered the girl now. She'd been nice and sweet and certainly pretty, but there'd been no spark there, and he'd thought the feeling was mutual. You can't blame it all on me. There just wasn't any real attraction between us. According to her, there was, Paige said dismissively. She said she merely mentioned wanting to settle down here instead of the city, and you blurted out that you're leaving for good and won't ever settle down. And then you stopped calling her. Noah stood up and began pacing the room, trying to calm his steadily increasing heart rate. This whole situation was spiraling out of control. They weren't even talking about him and Kate anymore. Now they were taking a trip down some miserable memory lane and revisiting irrelevant events and people that had no bearing on either of their current lives. He didn't want to blast Paige, but it was becoming more and more difficult to remain calm. Look, he said, I don't want to talk about people I went on one date with 4 years ago. It's not your business and has nothing to do with me and Kate. If you're worried I'm going to break her heart, I can understand that, but I'm not going to. I promise you. Paige regarded him for a moment, anger still glittering in her eyes. Resentment, too, long held, and having matured over the years into something truly hard and cold. It hurt to see her look at him like that. Kate wants to settle down. Here, just like Jenna did, Paige said. I know. She wants to get married and have kids. I know. You don't. I know that too. Then what the fuck, Noah? Paige burst out, and he could see tears starting to form in the corners of her eyes. Tell me how you're not going to end up hurting her. Because to be honest, I don't even get why you're into her. Paige was on a roll, and he figured it didn't matter much what he chose to say. Lily's right. She's not really your type. All I can figure is that you see it as some sort of challenge, or... She faltered for a moment, recovered herself. That you're trying to hurt me for some reason. Of course not, he said, and leaned closer so he could lower his voice. Look, I didn't plan for this to happen. It just sort of developed between us. We both decided. So you're saying this is her idea, too? Yes, sort of. I mean, yes. He sighed. It's complicated, but yes. I don't believe that. Paige shook her head. She has this phrase, NMFA. It stands for no more fucking around. Noah nodded. I know. Then you know she wouldn't have let a casual fling just develop, Paige said. She must think you're serious about her. She wouldn't get involved with you if she knew you weren't. She's going to get so hurt when you leave. Do you really think I'm some heartless asshole? Really? He asked pointedly. He half glanced at the closed doorway and lowered his voice. You think it won't hurt me to have to say goodbye to her, knowing she'll probably fall in love with some other guy? The words surprised him. Hell, they shocked him. They'd flown from his lips before he'd even known he was going to speak. But now that they were out, he didn't feel the need to retract them or make some lame joke to diffuse them. Paige blinked. Her expression lost some of its heat, although confusion still clouded her features. Even if, she stammered after a moment, clearly trying to make sense of what he'd said. Even if I believed that you were capable of actually loving her? She sounded like she was trying on the word, checking it out in the change room mirror, not sure of the fit. You do know that your trip to Panama is entirely voluntary, right? No one is forcing you to go. I have to go, he said simply. It's not up for debate. Yeah, so you've said. Paige waved it away, bitterness creeping into her voice. God forbid you'd think of actually living here and having a real relationship with someone. That would be horrible. And this goes for Kate, too, I suppose. Paige frowned. What do you mean? Are you going to tell her that no one is forcing her to get married and settle down? That she could go to Panama with me if she wanted to, and would gladly do it if she really cared about me? Noah. Or maybe I'm the only one expected to give up my dreams here, he said, hating how petulant he sounded, but unable to stop himself. It's okay for me to give up the only thing I've wanted to do for the last 16 years, but you'd never dream of asking her to put off having kids for a few years. Her goals you approve of. Mine you think are just more pie-in-the-sky fantasies from your loser brother. For God's sake, Noah, I never... And of course I'm capable of loving her. She's incredible. I mean, God, I'm... His brain cut him off. Shut up, Kincaid, it warned, or I'll make you stroke out, I swear to God. Now Paige's lips parted, and her eyes grew wide. Heat began to crawl up his neck, and he knew any second now he'd break into a cold sweat. His legs went all rubbery and almost numb, and then his stomach joined the assault and started to churn. He'd said too much. He'd revealed far too much of himself, and to his sister, of all people. He lowered his head and looked at the ground, taking a deep breath to try to center himself. Noah, sit down, Paige said, her voice a lot more gentle now. Ironically, gentle Paige wasn't any less disturbing than angry Paige. He could just sense a let's bond conversation coming, and he really didn't want to be there when it arrived. I'm just saying, he said offhandedly, taking a seat beside her again. He felt better now, back in control. I'm not an asshole, okay? I wouldn't be with Kate if I genuinely thought she'd end up getting hurt. We've talked about this. We both know this can't be a long-term thing, and we're both okay with it. We're just together for the summer, and we're totally fine with it. He debated telling her about the diary, but just couldn't face that conversation. Besides, he felt oddly protective of that part of their story. The diary was a secret communication between them, separated by 15 years, hidden and discovered, and uniting them in the most serendipitous way. He'd barely had time to process that Kate wasn't angry at him for reading it. Hell, that she'd written it in the hopes that he'd find it and read it. And now that he thought of it again, warmth flushed through him with an odd, tingly sort of awareness, just like the first moment he'd read her name and knew she'd been gushing about him. He'd never felt anything like it before, and as much as he wanted Paige to understand who he really was, he wanted to keep this feeling to himself. We didn't know back in high school that we liked each other, he found himself explaining. We were friends through you. But there'd also been this secret little crush thing going on back then, too. We were just too young and stupid to do anything about it. Paige was looking at him strangely. And since his WSP was evidently on the fritz today, he had no idea what was simmering behind her eyes. She looked like a scientist marveling at some unknown new species. That's a lot of wheeze in there, she finally said. I don't think I've ever heard you being a we with anyone. Noah sighed. She and I, then. Jesus, Paige. Paige took his hand again and cleared her throat. If it seems like I'm overprotective of her and not you, it's only because she's been hurt so much. You know what her childhood was like. All those temporary foster homes and that awful mother of hers. You know she saw us like the family she never had. I never saw her as family. One sister is plenty. Good friends, then. Paige didn't take the bait. Friends she can count on to be here for her when she gets hurt, which for some reason seems to be pretty often. I am her friend, Noah said, squeezing Paige's hand, and I always will be. We've worked it out. We'll go back to being just good friends after the summer is over. Paige's eyebrow raised, but she said nothing. It's sweet that you care so much about her, Noah said, and I'm trying not to take it too personally that you think I'm a complete asshole to your friends. Paige closed her eyes and shook her head, and Noah saw a couple of tears squeeze out from beneath her lashes. She opened them again, bright blue that sparkled in the sun. It's not that, really, it's just... She began, but lost her way. She shook her head again and looked down at her lap. I'd love it if you settled down here. Mom's happy in Florida with her friend, and her cousins live out in Oregon, and, well, you're all I have. She sighed and looked up at him with shimmering eyes and sniffled. I shouldn't need to say this, but I'm going to miss you, you big goof. Because from the way you've been talking, I honestly don't know if you're ever coming back. Noah's chest suddenly felt too tight. His entire body was conspiring against him today, it seemed, including the part that wanted to get the hell out of this room and get back to Kate. Paige dabbed at her eyes with 2 fingertips, sparing her mascara. If you and Kate ended up together, if she managed to keep you here when I can't, and if the 2 of you were truly happy together, she trailed off with a small shrug, it would make me happy. She always did know how to get to him. If he could make the 2 most important women in his life happy, well, wasn't pleasing women every guy's ultimate goal? For the briefest moment, he pictured it. A sun-drenched, happy day in the near future, having a water gun battle on the front lawn with his kids, laughing at their shrieks and giggles as he nailed their little bodies with the spray, glancing up at Kate and Paige on the front porch, seeing Kate's gorgeous smile. He could almost smell the fresh-cut grass and feel the summer heat slicking his shirt to his back. Could almost picture the house they'd live in, somewhere just outside of town, where Kate could have her greenhouses and flower beds, and the kids had plenty of room to grow. The image tugged at him, like it was a sly seductress luring him into another life. You could make Kate happy, it whispered to him. You could give her the life she deserves, and give Paige nieces and nephews, and a brother she can count on. You'd be everyone's hero. All you'd have to do is buy Kate a ring and apply for a mortgage and go to work every day for the next 30 years, or until your knees give out, or your back seizes up, or something much, much worse. Listen, he said, shaking off the reverie. We shouldn't leave Kate out there by herself. She's probably worried. You were pretty livid. Paige's face fell, and she quirked her lips with remorse. Jeez, you're right. I should go apologize. She left the room, and Noah followed. Kate, he called out as soon as he was out of the room. There was no answer from the empty living room. Kate was gone.